Welcome to Meet the GIMP. My name is Rolf Steinort and I am recording this in Bremen, Northern Germany. Here is the foreground and background color dialog. You can select the colors in 6 different ways. In this first way, you can see some sliders as H, S, V, R, G, B, and they stand for hue, saturation, value, red, green, blue respectively. Here I select black as my foreground color and you can see that the value of hue, saturation, value, red, green, blue all are 0, and when I increase the value of hue, nothing changes. Black remains black because the value is 0, and when I increase the value, I get a different gray tones. I can increase the saturation while value is 0 and nothing changes. But you can see here that when I increase the saturation, the color in the other sliders change a bit. If I pull the hue, nothing happens. But when I pull saturation, color of value changes to a kind of blue. If you want to select a color by the HSV system, then just pull the saturation and value slider up and you get different colors of the rainbow in the hue slider, and you can select from these colors. Here you can see the colors in the red, green and blue slider changes according to HSV slider, and it becomes easy to select a color. If you want a light color, then adjust the saturation slider, and if you want a good mixture of strong color, then slide the value slider accordingly and select an amount in red, green or blue slider. So hue, saturation and value is not very easy to understand, but a good way to select colors. I use this dialog only when I have to set a specific color. For example, if I want to have exactly medium gray, then I pull the value slider up to 50. So the value is divided between 0% and 100%. And in the RGB slider, I set the numbers to 127. And you get exactly medium gray. Now let's have a look at the other dialogs. This dialog is based on the HSV color model, and first you select the color in the circle which you want to have. And then select the value and the saturation in the triangle. So when a hue is selected, you get here the different values of value and saturation in the triangle for the same hue. The next dialog is similar to this one here. In this dialog, you have a strip to select the hue and you get the same color as in the triangle in this square. And now you can select your color here from this area, or you can change the hue here and select your new color. Here you can also switch to saturation and select the combination of value by sliding this way and hue sliding this way. You can set the value to get a strong color here and change the saturation and the hue accordingly. In the same manner, it works for red, green and blue. I can change the amount of blue in the color I want to have, and then the amount of red and green in the same way. This dialog is not so innovative than the previous one. The next dialog is a watercolor mix-up. Here, this slider adjusts the intensity of tipping into the color pots, and you can select a color from this box. And this here will be the resulting color. You can select a color, let's say this yellow, and now I can add a bit of blue to this and a bit of red, and the resulting color you get is very muddy. I don't use this dialog very often. This dialog shows the active palette, and you can set the palette somewhere else. It's only useful for graphic designing and for web designing. I really never have done much with this dialog. One more thing is still to cover. It's the printer colors here. I think this dialog is useful only for professional printers, and printers use cyan, magenta and yellow instead of red, green and blue, and that is because they subtract the color. The red, green and blue mix up and adds to white, and with printing, if I set cyan, magenta and yellow to 0, simply the white paper is printed. If I want to print the black color, then I can set cyan, magenta and yellow to 100 and I get fully black paper. These colors, these dyes subtract from light and reflects only cyan, and by mixing up them you can subtract more and more from the light, and you can get all the colors you can print. There are some visible colors that cannot be printed, and so your result varies. The fourth slider is K, which represents black. To avoid mismatch with blue, it is set as K for black. When I click the white color, which is my background color, you can see nothing has changed. The colors are the same, but the cyan slider has gone down and the K slider has gone up. Let's repeat that. Slide the Y slider to 40, M to 80 and C to 20. Now when I select the color, you get the M slider as 75, Y as 26 and K as 20. So you can see that the color hasn't changed, but the mixture of cyan, magenta and yellow that was there before in the image has changed to magenta, yellow and black. Black ink is a bit cheaper. So for the static point here, instead of the Mackie mixture of cyan, magenta and yellow, mixture of magenta, yellow and black is used. So now we have covered all the 6 dialogues of color selection, but these 2 color swaps are remaining. The front color is my foreground color and the other one is my background color, and when I click on it, you can set the color here. And if you want these colors in your image or in your selection, then just pull this colors over that area and it gets filled with that color. You can have these color swaps in the toolbox. Just go to File, Preferences and then Toolbox, and here you can see foreground and background color and even the brush and the active image. I will switch this off afterwards because it takes too much space in my toolbox. This small icon on right top corner of color swaps is for exchanging the foreground and background color. The same can be done by pressing the X key. This icon on bottom left corner is for setting foreground and background color to black and white. This is a nice new feature. It's a color picker and you can choose any color you want from your screen or even from a website. And lastly, there is a field where you can see the hex code to define colors. And when I change the color, you can see how the code changes, and I can also type in the hex code and get the color. Or you can even type the color name. For example, I type L and you get all the colors. Lawn green, this is lawn green. So this was color dialog in detail. I think I talked way too much. This is Hemant Vaidande dubbing for the Spoken Tutorial project.